We have limited innovation to only just technological innovations. But the term innovation in and itself is when two ideologies collide. So you are campaigning and telling me that our leadership comprises of men, women, young ones. No. I don't want to hear that. But how many have you employed?
Are we being intentional enough to say, let's put in systems, processes, policies to address this issue? Mr. Bulelani, good sir.
Yes,
how are you?
No, man, I'm very good.
Yep.
Very good, nervous, excited, happy.
Why are we nervous?
I guess, the political climate in the country.
Yes.
But excited for the podcast, actually.
Yes.
Really, really excited for the podcast.
Are you well, though, man? I'm
well. And also, I watched the podcast with Mash.
Sure.
Beautiful
is it?
Stuff.
Good stuff.
Beautiful stuff.
Good stuff. Yeah. Hey, man, look, right there. So, this is really... And this is why I wanted to have a conversation with you. When you are doing a lot of work in the entrepreneurial space, but specifically, and please jump in and give me your views on it, the township economy, and what they like to call the informal sector. Yeah. And it's important. Yeah. It's important. Why, you tell me, sir, why are you so passionate about that space, and why do you think that space is so important for this country in your eyes, in your view?
No, man. I think for me, it's very important, right? And I sort of want to, bring something to light, right? I was asked a question years ago.
Sure.
And the question was, but why Township, right? Why don't you guys advocate for just entrepreneurship?
Talk to me.
And I think for me, and I think then, the simple answer to that was to say, the exclusionary setup is not to disadvantage anyone, but it's to advantage the ones who come from previously excluded economic backgrounds and communities, right?
Sure.
Because I think for me, being an individual who grew up in Lokshini, I've got some of my businesses operating in the township as well.
Love it.
It's important and you can pick up the barriers, wherever there's lacking loopholes and gaps or holes in the bucket, right?
Sure.
So I think for me it was important, and this is where our focus was, right? But I think the importance of it, when you sort of ask what is the importance of the township economy, 80% of South Africa's workforce resides within the township.
Thank you.
Over 20 million grant recipients reside within the township, right? Now, when you sort of look at the mapping of the township, there's over 1.8 million informal businesses. These are businesses that are registered to SARS, but also that's a conservative number because that number comes from that number comes from the 2018 data.
Okay.
The current data is probably way more than that, right?
I'm with you.
And I think for me, when you sort of look at those nuances in and themselves, and you then utilize the multiplier effect, and the multiplier effect is the fact that on minimum, majority of them employ 3 individuals that are within their business.
Sure.
So when you utilize that as a multiplier effect, you then start to see that the impact is not just the individual, but the impact is the many other individuals that are operating within that space. And then I think for me, when you sort of then track back to, a few weeks ago, stats released, I think there was their quarterly stats on, and then the particular one they wanted to focus on now is the youth unemployment, right?
Sure.
So when you zoom into the youth unemployment, it starts at the age of 15, right? It goes all the way to the age of 35. That's where it starts, right? And then what they don't take into consideration is the individuals that are operating, the young individuals that are operating their businesses that are not registered. So I think what that then needs that in the long, with the statistician general and the other leaders, within that particular fraternity, we need a data revolution where we're able to account for these individuals.
Talk to me, sir, so you said something about sort of the assumptions there and the misconceptions. What, in your view, are some of the biggest misconceptions with the township economy? So when you get people from we said a lot of times they call it the informal sector, people who come from a formalized business background, there are certain assumptions that you make as a private investor, as an institutional, player, whatever the case might be, when you're supporting those businesses. What, in your view, if you're an investor, a private sector company player, what, in your view, would you wish these people understood about the township economy that they don't understand? And what are some of the biggest misconceptions in that space?
Sure, man, I love that question, man.
Yeah.
Sure, what a great question. Sure. I mean, I'll tell you what some of them are, right?
Sure.
Sure. The first one is, the misperception that says, and I think you see this with when brands come into the township.
Sure.
It almost seems like they haven't done their homework, right? You look at it, there was one big retailer that went into the township that ran a pilot program.
Sure.
That pilot program, I won't even call it a pilot program, because, that program, failed, in working with local wholesalers that were in the townships, in trying to get them. But the biggest challenge with some of these wholesalers, they were saying, you came to us because we're successful, but the reason why this program is failing is because you wanted to stock pet food. No one buys pet food elokshin. You understand? And you wanted to spread swimming gear. Because, those quotas should not be applicable to us. And the program is going to fail, because you are not working with us based off what we were successful in. You want us to work with you in the formal structure that you have, that you're replicating across your group, right?
Sure.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is, you sort of look at even in the malls, right?
Sure.
When a big retailer goes into the township, they don't stock the same quality, the same quantity, and the same look and feel as they would in a more established setup. A more established setup would be like your Santin or whatever the case is. The biggest challenge is that because of the fact that these individuals who live within the township are not affixed to their homes or the township, and they move around, they can see their indifference. You can see the indifference when you're driving into a drive-through and you're asking for ice cream and certain things are not on the menu or they are not options. But when you go to a certain locations, those things are options. And for me, the biggest thing that then throws me off is it almost comes across as disrespect. Because I work in the areas, I work for some of these corporations. Why do you not give us the same service? So the biggest misconception is the fact that they won't be able to buy, number one. Number two, they don't have an interest in purchasing some of those products, and which is why in certain meetings that I've had, this year, you sit there with an automotive leader, not leader per se, but big automotive giants in the country, and they say to you, we are experiencing no sales at the moment. And then you say, no, but you're experiencing no sales as a result of the fact that the economy is not growing. But however, there's an economy that you have not tapped into, which is the township economy. However, what that is met with, we don't think that it's going to work because our minimum, the lowest vehicle that we have, our entry-level vehicle is 600,000 Rand.
Sure.
And we don't think that people in the township would afford this vehicle.
Yeah.
Then you then sit back and think, but majority of the people that drive your vehicles are people from the township who either reside there, who grew up there, and then have sort of moved themselves to other locations. Yeah. So I think those are some of the misperceptions that we need to then work through. And I think the big thing for us is changing how we see. Right. So when you change how you see, so if you are a FMCG that manufactures flour, if you change how you see, you won't look at the guy who's selling amagwinya or fat cakes on the side of the road as a small enterprise. But when you start to look at him as a distribution center, this individual now becomes a distribution center because I'm pushing my trolley, I'm selling amagwinya. Then if I'm able to then work with these individuals, they become a distribution center for the end goal. The end goal is who? The consumer. So if I'm able to get buy-in from these individuals in buying into my product, these individuals then become the focal point or the credible point where hundreds and hundreds of individuals buy amagwinya from on a Saturday morning, on a Monday morning, or a Wednesday morning. So the most trusted voice to say this is the best brand in the market is actually this individual. Why? Because they're an operator within the space. Yeah. So they're not just a small scale hustler. Yeah. They're actually a distribution point for you to get to your end goal consumer.
Sure.
So it's changing how we see.
I love that so much because, and there's so many things that you touched on there, but there's something that I love there, and it talks to, you can't expect to enter a certain community if you haven't built some kind of level of trust with that community. And when you talk about these individuals who are already operating in those spaces, they have the trust. Yeah. They have the relationships. Yes. They've built years, has gone into that time, has spent investment into building that community, that relationship, the trust, right? So if you're looking to enter into that space, and this, I guess, would be a message to those, like we said, those corporate business or whatever the case might be, is understand that your entry point into this community is the people that are already in the community, operating in the community. Yeah. But I wanted to, so that's private sector perspective. Let's talk about government.
Yeah.
And my question is, from a government perspective, and I'll tell you why I asked this question, is because we know the role that government plays in terms of creating a conducive environment for business to thrive. So in your view, do you think there's enough support for the township economy from a government perspective, and then at a higher level in general? And this is from funding, education, whatever the case might be.
So I think to sort of then start it from the top, right?
Sure.
There's this thing that we'd say to entrepreneurs. It's also true, but it's limited truth, and I'll explain what I mean by that.
Sure.
We say to entrepreneurs, if you wait for government, you'll wait forever. So start. And which is true in the sense, because what it does, it breaks the individual away from not being operational or not being anything. So it gets them going. So it gets them to hustle, to scramble up, and to start and bootstrap and whatsoever the case is, right? That's the first. But however, when you then start to operate your business and you scale and you grow, there are certain barriers and there's certain red tape that only government can unlock, it can untape for you to be able to grow and scale your business and move it to the next level. So although we function in a mindset as entrepreneurs that says that let's operate as if there is no government, ultimately the ceiling for any economy is government, because government's main role is to create a conducive environment for what to happen, for trade to happen. Which is why in whatever conversations I've had over the years with government, I mean, at some point I served as an NDP, 2030 ambassador in the presidency. Under, Minister Jeff Radebe, then we were then migrated into Locus Umamzuma. But my challenge then with that is, then those then become workshops that are talk shops that don't actually translate into anything. And when you sort of then look back at the practical injustices, I mean, you look at when money was distributed during COVID, donations were made, they were well received, but that money didn't sort of then trickle down to the bottom. And that's because of, that's because of intentionality, the lack of intentionality, And what that sort of then looks like is, if you are intentionally wanting to solve the problems on the ground, you then need to then unpack what the challenges actually are. Number one, when you unpack what the challenges are, you need to understand there are two parts to every solution, right? There's the part that says, I am the funder, and I want to guarantee that the money will get to the people that we're trying to fund. As part of that, these are the criteria that would make me confident in saying that the money is going to get to these individuals. But when this criteria is implemented by a funding partner, to the entrepreneurs who are on the ground, they will want to implement this on the basis of this criteria. But when they implement with an aspect of ignorance. But that ignorance is not a bad thing in an ordinary day, because that ignorance says we can only help you if you've got your CIPC documents. So that becomes exclusionary. So we then say intention looks like this. What are the deal breakers in any criteria? And what can you relax? So when we talk about relaxing, we don't say, let it be a free-for-all, because where you don't have criteria, where you don't have compliance, you open up for the wolves to come in and you open up for anarchy and chaos. We say if an individual is required to have a letter of good standing from the Department of Labor and they currently don't have it, are we able to then shortlist them, make them aware that they are shortlisted? And what that then does is that we are then able to incentivize them to go back and sort it out. And then we give them 14 days or 30 days. What that then does is that it changes the conversation, because we're able to incentivize these individuals on things that are not necessarily deal breakers. But if this individual doesn't have a CIPC document, we can't talk to them. But can we make them aware that the reason why we're not talking to them is because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? So that what that then does is that it averts the economy or individuals who live within these economies from going back and ignorantly saying, they don't want to help us. They never want to help us. It's always the same story. They say there's money, but there's no money. No. But taking a layer of understanding where you're going to walk the journey with them and explain to them why. And then also then take them further to say that you are provisionally approved. However, it hinges on the fact that you will get X, Y, and Z up to check. That's it. And then throughout the implementation of the program, you are able to then, put buffers in place where you are checking on the individual to then make sure that they are holding themselves to that level of compliance.
So what I'm hearing is that there's just, and I love the word you used, intentional. So, and I'll take two steps back. So there's a case study that I loved. It's a case study around Israel, and Israel, and another one would be Egypt. These countries have a really dynamic technological environment. A lot is happening in technology there, but this didn't happen by mistake.
Yeah.
Leaders, people, individuals sat down and said, what is our opportunity as a country or as a region, given the global landscape?
Yeah.
And they identified this thing. And then they said, so then what do we need to do to see ourselves there? Let's put policies in place, strategies in place. It didn't happen by mistake.
Yeah.
So I love it when you say intentional. Where's the intentionality of saying, guys, we understand that we have a youth, you touched on it, a youth unemployment rate. So, and a huge amount of our youth reside in the township. Hey, guys.
Yeah.
So what are we doing about this? And are we being intentional enough to say, let's put in systems, processes, policies to address this issue? So I love that word intentional.
Yeah, because for me, it's it's one of the things I mentioned now with the election that we were facing or faced with at the country. Right? It's to say, there's a missed messaging, right?
Talk to me.
Or rather, a missed opportunity with political parties, right, in campaigning.
Yeah.
And that missed, especially at the time, because I was addressing these new political parties, and this was applicable to the existing one, was to say, as an individual, you must understand a couple of things. I hear what you are promising, but could you show me what you are doing now? And then someone then sits there and thinks to themselves, well, we don't have the budgets yet, we are not in government yet, we don't have, the signing power for certain things. No, you're missing the point. If you have formulated a party, it means that there's a level of procurement that already takes place. It means that there's a level of employment that already takes place. So you are campaigning and telling me that our leadership comprises of men, women, young ones. No. I don't want to hear that. But how many have you employed? So I see T-shirts that are printed. Where's that procurement coming from? I see last night you guys were in KZN, the next week you're in Cape Town, the next you're in Tembisa. There's logistics, there's a logistic movement there. Could you show me who's that person, what do they look like? And it took just simple intentionality. Because if you were able to bring that message across, now you build what is called affinity. When you build affinity, you then are able to relate with the mass market because these are people that can point at and say, how can Susie? These people actually came and stayed at your place. Wow. And that's what, that's what impact really looks like. So it's not this fragmentation that says, when I get into power, I will do. No. With the little power that we have, with the donations that we've received, this is what we are doing.
Currently
and this then becomes a model that will then utilize as a multiplier effect
to expand. Come on, sir. I love it. Tell me, what are some of the biggest challenges in your experience, your time working in the entrepreneurial space? You've been doing this for some time. Listen, when we start talking about the township economy, sir, there's no one else we can talk to. It's you, sir. So, in your years of experience working in this space, what are some in your view some of the biggest challenges that you sort of encountered, just with regards to, I guess, the whole ecosystem as a whole, the township economy, that ecosystem?
So I think first and foremost, and I'll talk about where we are now, right?
Sure.
First and foremost, crime. Crime becomes a big problem, and I'll tell you why. Because with some of the entrepreneurs we work with, and I won't necessarily, I won't mention the businesses for their safety and the locations and stuff. But there's certain small businesses that doing very well in certain parts of the country.
Sure.
Unfortunately, their biggest challenge is sort of different from everybody else's. So their biggest challenge is they don't want to grow beyond where they are, even though there's demand. And the challenge with that is the moment they grow beyond where they are, now you introduce the element of not necessarily corruption, but you introduce the element of individuals that are going to knock on their door and ask for protection fees. Because of where they operate from. And this is very rife within that particular neck of the woods. So this then would be different from the challenges that we read about, the challenges that are put on in reports, or the challenges that we talk about in boardrooms. That's why I say, whenever I'm asked what are the challenges, there are two types of challenges, right? There's the commercial challenge that I'm faced with an entrepreneur, which is market access, which is branding and marketing, which is information, which is funding for growth and funding to scale. But in the reality, on the the other end, there's an individual who's faced with a crime. But the crime in and itself is the fact that I don't want to grow beyond where I am, number one. So branding is not a problem for me, because if I brand, then I'm showing everybody else in the market or in the neighborhood that I'm a target within this business. I mean, there's one entrepreneur we worked with in KZN who said, I've had to remove all the branding from my vehicles because, my vehicles were being targeted. They were being hijacked, they were being stolen, they were left on the side of the road, the drivers were never hurt. It was someone just trying to prove a point. So as a result, we had to remove all of the branding. So I think for me, you can't talk about the challenges without mentioning that stuff. So I mean, it's definitely crime. So, and on the back of this, I never thought in my entrepreneurial years that SAPS would be an important stakeholder to bring to the table when you're talking about enterprise supply development, developing small businesses. But they are definite big role player to bring into the conversation to say, how could they work together along with corporate and government to support and protect these small businesses? And then the second layer for us that we then picked up is information. The lack of information or the lack of information or rather the lack of access to information. However, because I've had the opportunity of working with government in certain instances, with corporates, with small businesses, what I've picked up is that sometimes government has amazing programs. But the biggest challenge with that is they're not communicated
people
to
are
the right
unaware
people.
of these programs.
They're unaware of these programs. And I think sometimes it's because the streams that they utilize to distribute the information on these programs are not where these people operate within, right? And as a result, it creates the frustration from the individual that says, but we don't know about these things, you are not doing anything. So because I don't know about them, you guys are not doing anything. So it's that lack of information, because in business, information becomes a catalyst. Because if you don't know what you should know, then you might not grow to the leaps or to the heights that you're supposed to grow to. Similar to these entrepreneurs, and that's why we started Locus, the work that we do, which rather we also then started the team. It was simple. It was driven by two things. We started to support small businesses by two things. Number one, wanted to bring them in one room once a month to share information. Why? Because some of the things that they would ask me, to me in my arrogance or call it ignorance or whatever, to me it was like, no, but that's simple, man. How do you not know that when you want to register a business, you go to CIPC?
1, 2, 3.
Then I would then apply the privileged mindset that says, but you're a lazy person in thinking that way because you can just Google. Or rather then you could just go to Yahoo and just look up this thing. No. But if the individual is not in an environment that is cohesive enough to engage in these dialogues, then the use of tools that could help me, I don't apply the use of those tools in such a way that they benefit or they help me. I utilize it in an adverse manner. So bringing information that becomes powerful is you putting people in a lot of aha moments where they already have the tools, but they didn't know that they could utilize them in that particular way.
So I'm going to put you on the spot now. So you've talked to all these challenges, which I love. Now, sir, I come from a strategy consulting background, so I have to do this. If you were to prioritize three things, to say, if we were to put together a program, which I can almost imagine that you're already doing with the work that you do in the communities in which you operate, if you were to prioritize three things, say, guys, we just need to focus on 1, 2, 3. And of course, we know that there's many more. But if you were to strategically place your focus on 1, 2, 3 elements to say, if we get these things right, we do a lot of work in advancing the township economy. What would some of those things be?
I mean, the first thing for me is, number one, we're very clear on a couple of things. We are consumers. So because we are consumers, it presents a great opportunity. And the great opportunity is that there's a number of individuals that are creating stuff, but they're creating them at small scale. Now, what that then means is that it creates a great opportunity where you are able to bring them on board in a program where they create that stuff. You create a space where they're able to manufacture and build whatever that they need to build. But the biggest catalyst is that you then open up the market to consume what they build. Because the biggest challenge is that sometimes that we come across is the fact that you come across corporates and individuals who are willing to support, but they don't know where to start. They don't know where to go to support. And the challenge with that is because they are because they are caught up in living their busy lives and
Sure.
living their lives.
Sure.
Some of them are moms, some of them are dads. They need to pick up kids from school, and then the myriad of different activities that they're clogged up in.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is if we are able to then create a channel for ordinary individuals to then consume,
Sure.
then we won't feel the need to blackmail people or to feel them bad about not buying local. So if local is not in a certain city where it's mainstream, where it's easy to access, then an individual who works within that space and he gets an hour break and 2 hours after to socialize, and it's easier for them to just go there, buy a dress and go attend an event, it's going to be cumbersome for him to drive an hour into Soweto, go buy the dress and then drive back. So make it easily accessible for individuals to consume.
Love
and then
that.
open up distribution models where it's a distribution and manufacturing model. What that means is that
sir. Yeah.
they manufacture from there, and it becomes then a fulfillment center towards different things, whether that fulfillment center is for online stores or online e-commerce platforms, or that fulfillment center is for local distribution. But what that then does is that it then creates an amazing value chain, because now you are with the distribution model, now you've got the fulfillment. Fulfillment is in a number of different, now logistics comes into play. Now the taxi that usually ferries individuals from one place to another doesn't just do that, but then can ferry products and light items with the individuals within the taxi from one point to the other at a particular drop-off point, and this individual just walks and they go and they pick up. So those are some of the things that we, for us, we would do.
Why is selling so important? But the follow-up question, which is actually the most important question, is if you were engaging an entrepreneur now, township economy, not active in the township economy across the board, an entrepreneur, what would you say to them are the most 3 important skills that he needs to hone and work on to ensure success?
So in the first one, right, why is selling important? Because life is a pitch, right? So if I'm asking a lady out to, if I'm asking the taxi driver to take me to where I'm going,
it's a pitch.
I'm asking my uncle for money to go out to the dance, to I'm hanging out the majita, but I don't have cash and I want them to buy stuff for me, to I'm at a job interview and they ask me, do you have any questions or tell us about yourself? That is a sale. That is a sales pitch. I'm selling myself. I am the product and I'm the commodity in that particular sense. And sometimes the difference maker is not just in the CV, but when I bring the CV alive, that's the individual being in an interview. And when I'm in business, there's sales pitches and a number of different things. So life is a sale and life is a pitch, right? And I think that it's important that we understand that, because, and the primary base for that is for us to develop an entrepreneurial mindset. So there's not enough space for all of us to go into business and to create formal business structures. But an entrepreneurial mindset says, I won't just limit myself here, but within my job and within my employment, I'm going to deliver diligence, I'm going to deliver it excellently, so that not just when the owner comes, so that even when the customers come to the shop, there will be something significantly different about the shop in itself. So if you're a petrol attendant, the way I treat the customers, the way I pour the petrol will be different from any other petrol attendant. That's a unique selling proposition. That's a differentiator that I then develop. But when I'm able to engage with the individual, then I'm selling them on that differentiator that sets me apart from everybody else. So it's an important skill that we all need to cultivate, because the next level sometimes is on the back end of you being able to engage and tell people who you are and how you do it, and actually show them how you've done it. And that's where qualifications sometimes almost take a back seat, because if an individual has amazing qualifications but they don't know how to clearly articulate them, then they've thrown themselves completely off to the individual who will then be able to walk into the room and clearly articulate who they are, what they're about, and what they will do with the limited that they're given at the end of the day. And when you then sort of talk about
wait, because I know you're gonna go into the second follow-up, but we're gonna get there. But I need to place this emphasis, because I love that so much, and I've never heard it being said like that. But life is a pitch. Right?
Life is a big pitch.
All of us are pitching.
All of us are pitching. It's and I think for me, it's interesting, because I think I saw one of my comments on social media. Someone was saying, but not all of us, are born to sell. No, not all of us are actually born to sell. But however, it's a skill that we can harness.
And you need to harness.
Whether you have a mirror at home or you put your phone on selfie, you record yourself, you practice. It's important that you harness it, because life is not a respecter of people, but it's a respecter of principles. And those principles are simple. Wherever there's an action, there'll be reaction. There must always be friction. What does that mean?
Love
It
it.
means that if you're employed, whether you're running your
Yep.
own business, whether you're a security guard, whether you're unemployed and you're a student, you need to consistently sell yourself. So what does that mean in the long? It means that it doesn't reward the ones who were the best within a particular space. It rewards the ones who showed up. So are you showing up? And what is showing up? Showing up doesn't mean that I get there at 8 o'clock and I sit in the reception and I wait for my appointment. No. Showing up is how do I show up? How do I look like when I show up? And what do I say when I show up? And all of those are pitches. How are you pitching? How are you showing up? And how are you selling yourself? Very, very, I cannot emphasize this enough to individuals. And then on the back of that, and I think it's important that you don't misunderstand it in saying that qualifications are not important. They're very important because, an important thing here is, and I think this is also important for anyone who might watch this. We work with small businesses. Maybe they'll watch this because I'll share it. But qualifications are important because you must remember a couple of things. We start businesses according to the level of education, the level of our exposure, the level of experience, or the neighborhoods and the networks that we come in. So for me, it makes sense that 18 years ago, I started as an internet cafe because the only 5 or 6 options I was faced with was a car wash, an internet cafe, a shisanyama, a tavern, or a tuck shop, or a hair salon, or whatever. There's about 10 of them, but I chose that one. But then becomes very important for individuals who want to then start anything or who have started stuff to expose themselves through reading, through traveling, through a number of different things, to watching this podcast and sharing it with your mates. Why? Because the moment you hear ideology shared in a different perspective, innovation happens. And the biggest travesty that we've done over the past number of years is that we have limited innovation to only just technological innovations. But the term innovation in and itself is when 2 ideologies collide. It's when a camera meets a cell phone. It's when an individual, it's when a taxi driver says, you know what, instead of just ferrying people locally, if you guys have got school trips, I'm your guy. If you guys have got weddings, I will park my commuters. I'll drive them in the morning, but in the afternoon, I'll come drive you guys to the wedding. When the wedding's done, I'll come pick you guys up. That's what innovation means. It's when 2 ideologies collide. But how do you get to the point when you expose yourself? So it's important for you to expose yourself. So when I then started to expose myself, it then showed within the type of businesses that I started. Then I was trying out transporting school kids. Then I was trying out construction. Then I was trying out food, selling food parcels, and many other different things.
I love that so much. So repeat that. You said innovation is when 2
Innovation
ideologies,
is when
different
two ideologies collide.
And I like that so much because this is the definition I know, and it says innovation is not only doing something completely new, but it's just the different combination of things that already exist. Right?
Yes.
So just saying, okay, so we've put this together this way.
Yes.
But now we're going to try that way. Where I want to land is this, my good sir. You've been doing a lot of work in this space, but you've also built your own businesses. And you've also been engaging in the business of building businesses. And just going back to what you said about the conversation around information, that's why we do these things, Because other than that, what else is it for? The biggest barrier is information.
It's the biggest one, eh?
Right.
It's the biggest. Years ago, we had the conversation and someone said, these days, everyone wants to be a writer and everyone is releasing a book. But then you then go and look at the stats. The stats is that only 4% of the books that are authored are authored by local individuals that look like you and me. So what do you mean when you say it's just that in your space it looks like? And when it looks like that, it's actually an important thing because it means that it trickles down. It's like if someone comes in and says that, it seems like everyone is doing a podcast. In actual fact, everyone needs to do a podcast because that information needs to then trickle down. That information needs to then be shared because that information is a big catalyst to whether someone succeeds or fails or not.
And 2 things there. So I was having a conversation with someone and I was saying to them, the conversation is not do we need more podcasts or not? The conversation is not do we need more information or not? The conversation is we need more of it, but at a certain level or standard. Right?
Yeah.
Where it's actually, it's a value add.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, so when you walk away from listening to this conversation, you're like, I learned 1, 2, 3, and these are actionable insights that I can actually go into my business and implement.
Yeah.
And that for me is a difference. We know in this digital economy, knowledge economy, there's information overload. There's too much information.
Yeah.
It's not about information. It's about the right information at a certain quality standard. And that's, again, how we do these things, right? Because information is the biggest barrier. But to the question that I was saying to you or asking you was, in your journey, the many years you talked about starting off as, internet cafe, and then exposure came in. Then you were like, no, I can do construction, I can do this, and I can do that. And on that, guys, get exposed.
Yeah.
Reading, podcasts, like you said, just reiterating, travel, get exposed as much as you can. What would you say has been one of your most important lessons along the journey? And adjacent to that would be a message that you would give to an entrepreneur who's currently building, maybe discouraged, because this is not easy, this thing, a message that you'd give to them to say, well, this is what I've learned, embrace this, take it from there.
Sure. I think the first one for me would be, and this is what I tell my team every day, it's never the client's job to chase us. So even though the sign on the door says we are here to help you, it's never their job to help us.
Sure.
So let us not ever take that in, because what then does is that when I take that information in, I become rested. And when I become rested, sometimes I become complacent. And then sometimes when I'm complacent, it breeds familiarity, and familiarity breeds contempt. So I then say to them, it's never the client's job to give us the money. It's the client's job to get the solution from us. It's the client's job to get the healing. So it's a pain point that we're solving for. So it's our job to chase the sale. And then over and above chasing the sale, we must then chase for our solutions and make sure that we bring them to the fore. So some of the opportunities I've gotten is when I saw the criteria said I didn't qualify, but I still applied anyway. Then they called me in to say, we see you have applied. Well, you're in luck because only 4 people responded to this and our quota is 10. So let's talk to you about this. So should we bring you in? Will you be able to meet the minimum spec or whatever the case is when we give you this project? Then it was, Then that was then my opportunity to then deliver. So sometimes what we then do is that we don't just limit ourselves. So we should not just limit ourselves, but we should not even allow other things to limit ourselves. So I guess maybe you call it the sixth sense, because sometimes when your gut or your sixth sense tells you that this is something I need to go for, the criteria might be not one that says you qualify. But if you know that it's yours, then put your name in the ring. Because at the end of the day, if I've already created the collateral for this thing, and it's not going to cost me anything but my time that I would have reappropriated to other things, then I'm going to send that thing and not limit myself. And the second thing then for me is, it's important to, we touched on it, but it's important to show up. All of us, it's this thing, I think a smarter person said this years ago to say that, all of us have the same dreams, but the differentiator is execution. So maybe 10,000 people will dream or think about the same thing, but the different thing is execution. So execute, but the challenge sometimes is that we don't want to execute because we're waiting for it to be perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect thing. There's no such thing as a perfect cell phone, the perfect car, which is why cars consistently keep being recalled, but they're being built up by multi-billion rand organizations. Cell phones are like. So what you then do is that as long as it's not illegal, it meets the minimum health standards, and the sort is very important. Put your product out there, because the clients, your consumers and the customers will help you to validate the product. But it's important to, to get things done. It's important to act, because what that then does is that, there's this business model canvas, and what the business model canvas is a beautiful tool that you utilize, because but the only time the business model canvas is when you have gone out into the market. You go in, you iterate, people test, you come back, you say, okay, cool, I got 2 customers, they like Tamakunya Wam, that's great. You don't just go back and say that means that tomorrow I can get 4. No, you ask the 2 that have already bought them, why did you buy from me?
I love it.
Because when you ask them that, why did you buy from me and what do you like about my product, it gives you amazing data and insights. You are able to go back home and then say, oh, so if I shift this corner and go to that one,
Yeah.
more of these
Yeah.
people that
Yeah.
look like
Will
this
come.
will come.
Exactly.
And then when I add a little bit of sweetening to this product,
Yeah.
more of these people will come. Then that
Sure.
changes your business dynamic entirely.
And I love that because it talks to the feedback loop, what we call the feedback loop.
Yes.
And this is a book, by the way. If you don't know about it, go read it. The Lean Startup,
Yes,
great
yes,
book.
yes.
So I love what you said. So you said build it, deploy,
Yes.
get feedback from the customer.
Yeah.
That's data, information, and based on the information, iterate.
Yeah.
Then
then
deploy,
repeat it.
repeat. And that's the feedback loop.
Yeah.
And do that but build,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Get things done,
Yeah.
right?
Get
the
things
good
done.
man's wearing the cap.
Now, and you know it's crazy. I've
Sure.
worn this cap now every day of my life
For real?
11 years.
And
11 years. So you know what?
I will believe you
I can't
because
believe it.
every picture I've seen.
I got a reminder the
could
other
say,
day.
Get
I got a
things done.
reminder the other day.
Sure.
And I think for me, I wear this as a reminder. So
Yeah.
initially, I wore this as a reminder to me. And you know what? That reminder to me was don't get lazy, don't get familiar, don't think you've arrived. You know, there's always room to learn. And we see it, you know. There was some point there was no TikTok, now there's TikTok. At some point there was nothing called a podcast, now there's podcasting. At some point there were certain things that were not here, but they are now here.
Yep.
So it's adapt or die. So I think this is a reminder to me to adapt or die because there are moments where I say to myself, man, there'll always be another. There are too many of these things I'm not going to learn.
Yeah.
But then this then becomes a reminder to me to say, no, but remember, you made a promise to yourself. Adapt or die. So are you going to learn it or are you going to sit on the curb or not participate within the ring because you think that it's for the young and cool and it's not for you?
So I want to bring this like square and center right to you. So you said, you know, all the numerous things you said around, you know, entrepreneurs build, get out there, show up. So, but we know that it's tough to build in this country.
Yeah.
And we're not making excuses.
Yeah.
I'll reiterate everything that you said. Build, show up. You have to. There's no other way.
Yeah.
You have to do that. What kept you going? How did you keep building? How did you keep showing up on your deep? Because as people who entrepreneurs who are building, it's not always nice, guys. There's some tough, dark times.
Yeah.
What's some of the stuff that's kept you going?
You know, I love this question because if you had asked me this years ago, I would have given you a very intellectual answer. But, you know, I've learned over the years, it's important to be real. And being real for me, what's kept me going is prayer. I don't wanna lie to anyone. And I know we've got all different religious beliefs, but it's prayer. Because what prayer has done for me, I found myself in many moments where the deal went sideways, the deal got terminated. I parked on the side of the road, you know. I remember years ago, and I mean, it was safer then. I find myself on the M1, on the N1 side of the road. I found where there's a bridge, recline my seat, and I just lie down.
Sit.
You know, I put my phone on silent and I just pray, you know. And I don't drive off with a solution, but the prayer calmed me in that moment in time. The second thing for me was, you know, a tribe of individuals that supported me. So I remember I made the mistake when I went into business, you know, then I wanted to build a tribe of individuals that were also in business. Because these individuals will understand my challenge. Then I understood that, but that's a fallacy. Because although they might understand the challenges, but they might not necessarily be there to comfort. You know, then what I then did is I went back and I built my tribe of individuals that who, you know, and what happened with that is a tribe of individuals that I'd go back to, they would not understand anything about what I'm telling them about, what this business challenge is, but when they understood one critical thing, but dude, you said you're going to do this, Fit. Aren't you the same guy who did 1, 2, 3? Man, you know what? I don't know what your solution is, but I know you're gonna get it because you are that guy. You understand what I'm saying? And then I think for me, because I'm a dad, I've got 2 boys. You know, what keeps me going is my sons, man. I love my sons very, very much. So my sons keep me going because, and I'll tell you the journey of fatherhood just quickly. So it came at a time where, you know, my messaging to entrepreneurs was, if you're not sleeping at 2 a.m. and waking up at 4, you're lazy. You need to always be working.
You're that guy, sir.
No, I was that guy, and I've reformed. You know, it's important that
I've reformed.
I've reformed and I've changed because there was nonsense information I shared there. You know?
Yeah.
So the journey was, okay, cool, I'm going to be a dad. this is going to be an inconvenience. It's going to pull me away from what I need to do. And then the journey went from, because I was raised by a single mother and I had no father, I'm going to do the right thing. Then it went to, oh my goodness, is this how amazing this is? Then now it's at a point where I've learned way more from my kids than I would have in reading books and stuff. Why? Because it's a number of different lessons around love, around humility, around business, around how to interact, around slowing down, around how to actually generate better ideas, is when you're calmer, is when you're more relaxed, is when you've slowed down, and how to reset your mind. So those are the three main things that, that center me. And then obviously it's the entrepreneurs, the community of people, but those are my three main things. Prayer, my tribe of people, that tribe of small circle of individuals that I rely on, that I gather my strength from, and then over above that, my two amazing sons, And in no particular order, so that one day when they're 30, they'll be like, but Dad, we're number 3. Nah, no particular order.
No particular order. Disclaimer. I love it. It's too much power, man. And so Oprah and Dr. Arthur, this Dr. Arthur is a Harvard Business School professor. They wrote a book recently on happiness, and they say happiness is not a destination; it's a continuous journey. Oh, wow. It's a continuous pursuit.
Yeah.
But I only say that to say, you talked about, and in this book they talk about, no matter what you believe in, there needs to be something bigger than you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the first point, when you talk about prayer, there needs to be something bigger than you, guys.
Yeah.
There needs to. Then number 2, tribe.
Yeah.
Community.
Yeah.
Because you can't do this thing alone.
No, you can't.
Right?
No, you can't, yeah.
And then I love number 3. There's too many here with your number 3, because there's family there, the imperative and the importance of family, how that grounds you. But then there's slowing down.
Yeah.
Sometimes just slow down.
Yeah.
It's okay. Don't have all the answers. Things are a mess, but slow down.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes the winds don't come now. The winds are going to come 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, but there's a reason why they come.
Yeah.
Slow down. And I've learned that recently.
Yeah.
And to the faith conversation, it's like God knows best.
Yeah. No.
Everything in its time.
All the way.
In the due season.
Yeah.
So slow down.
Yeah. And it's gonna happen.
That's the thing.
And it's gonna happen.
That's the thing.
That's why, how do I say this in a corporate way? My personal belief.
Sure, talk to me.
Life is spiritual. And as a result, because life is spiritual and we are spirit beings having a human experience, it means that how we do business would be spiritual.
Come on.
So whatever the person decides to believe in, harness your spiritual being as much as you would your physical being and going to the gym, as much as you would in listening and watching this podcast, and you're feeding your mind, your brain, and your soul. Harness it, because life is spiritual. And that's just my simple belief, in what life is and what life is all about. That's why, whether it's prayer, some call it different things, find that thing that centers your being and your heart, so that you are able to find, when you can't find people to comfort you, you don't you don't put yourself in a position, and not to say that people deliberately put themselves in, but you are able to avert depression and other things, because life is difficult and tough. And sometimes we do everything right and still win. What then is the comfort? Because there's no logic. There's no logical explanation to doing everything right and still don't win. But what I love about what you said is, but you don't win in that moment. But because everything has a season and a moment, the win is going to come.
Sir.
So that's where logic fails, but your spirit is going to set you at ease, because your faith will set you at ease, because that maybe it was not the right moment, but I know I've got the right recipe and I'm going to put it back out into the market. And at the right moment, it wins.
And I'm a believer just like you. But this is what I say, guys. So me and my good brother might believe in a certain religion. We're believers, we might believe in it. But faith is a transcendent idea.
Yeah.
And I've read many entrepreneurial books.
Yeah.
Elon Musk had a company, PayPal, that was going to go bankrupt in 2 months.
Yeah.
the man kept going.
Yeah.
The last month, the man kept going. What is that if it's not faith?
That's
because faith is to when it doesn't make sense, you are still saying somehow it's gonna make sense.
There's something here.
Right?
Yeah.
So maybe not now, but eventually.
Yeah.
Right? But faith. So the idea of faith is transcendent.
Yeah.
And have faith.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever that looks like to you, have it. Because on this journey, you're gonna need it.
Not true. And dances and tons of it.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
But I think for me, sure, man, wow, what an amazing podcast. Sure. No, man, you know why I love it? Because
Sure.
we got to touch on
I'm fully with
so
you.
I call it
Yeah.
in my head now, it's like it was wholesome.
Yeah.
So I didn't come here to share information, but it was an encounter,
Sure.
where I am walking away having learned amazing things as well. But it was wholesome because, we didn't just get to say to the person, here are the problems, we spoke solutions. We didn't just speak to the solutions, but the individual now knows that it's not a magical source.
Yeah.
Because success leaves clues.
Yeah.
So, and I love the nakedness of being able to point at certain things so that people can go locate themselves in certain spaces and not just go back and say, but I tried that.
Sure.
I went and I tried it, it didn't work. No, but now you got the whole piece. So you can work on your whole being and not just a corner of it. So we're not just saying go get a suit,
Sure.
get a better car,
No.
go to better networking
It's
events.
holistic,
No, it's
this thing.
holistic.
Love it. I can't say it any other better words, sir. I can't. Mr. Bulelani. Good sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, man.
Oh, man, thank you.
I am deeply grateful. I was really looking forward to this conversation, man. And like I said in the beginning of the conversation, if we're talking the township economy, the entrepreneurial space within that sector, there's no better person to talk to than you. And it's so important that we place an emphasis on that space. So I'm a big advocate for the SME environment, startup landscape. It's important, guys. I really believe that only when we begin to get that space working will we begin to solve many of these problems that we've touched on: unemployment, inequality, poverty, etc. But I am even thereafter, or more so, even deeply more grateful for, like you said, the holistic conversation.
Yeah.
So out of the busy schedule, out of the ups and the downs, yesterday we were voting. Good sir, I really appreciate you taking the time,
thank you so much, bro.
coming out and having the conversation.
Sure,
man.
you made it worth it. I actually enjoyed this. I actually, conversations worth having, and we had it, and it's an amazing one. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
In everything that you touch, sir, moving forward, blessings and all the best.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, sir.